So, Jeepers Creepers. Who remembers Jeepers Creepers from 2001? Yes, it's been nearly 23 years. That's the feeding cycle for this creature. So, obviously, it's time for another Jeepers Creepers film. In this case, Jeepers Creepers Reborn. So, is this film any good or isn't it? Let's talk about it.
It's coming.
Okay, welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is AJ, back with a sort of horror film review. Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Yes, now this film is rated 15. It runs for 1 hour and 28 minutes and is directed by Timo Vuorensola. I've probably butchered that name, but there you go. And written by Sean Michael Argo. Yeah, so this film has nothing to do with the fella that made the previous Jeepers Creepers films, although he did have a script for a fourth one in place, but that wasn't utilised for this film. He has nothing to do with this film. They've distanced himself from this because obviously the fella went down as a nonce. Yes, bit of a molester. He was not a very nice fella. So yes, this film had nothing to do with him. Let's just get that out of the way. Timo Vuorensola, who's the director of this film, has actually directed Iron Sky 1 and 2, two films that I have seen. Isn't there a third on the horizon? I thought there was. Anyway, that's me going off on a tangent there. Now, this film here, like I said, runs for 1 hour and 28 minutes. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the film, a little breakdown, my thoughts on the film, and I want to talk about Jeepers Creepers as a franchise and what it means to me, the effect that it had on me, and all that sort of a thing, because I'm not a fan. But there we go. So anyway, so this film here, so this film starts off, the first 9 minutes are a bit of a fake out, really. The first 9 minutes of this film star Dee Wallace, who was in E.T., Mother of Elliot, and Gary Graham, another sort of famous face of an actor that you may recognise but won't be able to place him. And it's what you're watching is very much a callback to the original start of the original Jeepers Creepers. Now, it's been a long time since I've seen that first one. In fact, it's been since the early 2000s when it first came out. Yes, I haven't seen it since. But as far as I remember, this is how the first film opened. But about 9 minutes in, we come to realise that actually what we're watching is a recreation of what had happened, a sort of YouTube recreation of stuff that had happened before with a creeper, and we're then introduced to the two primary characters in this film. One played by Sidney Crayon, who starred in EastEnders, and another fella, Imran Adams, who I've got no idea who he is or what he's been in. But even though this Sidney Crayon was in EastEnders, I don't know her from it because I haven't seen EastEnders in probably about 15 years. Not really interested either. So there we go. So we're introduced to these two characters and they're on their way to this Horror Hound Festival. Yes, Chase, Imran Adams, is a bit of a sort of horror geek. So he wants to go to this festival and they're sort of celebrating the creeper. They're doing it in Louisiana where the creeper story comes from and all this sort of a thing. Yeah, it's very typical of a sort of this sort of genre of film, in that you're introduced to these characters, but there are no real character to them. You know, they're not well developed, written individuals or anything like this. They're just there for the purpose, to serve the purpose of this story, and this is one of my biggest issues. So anyway, the film devolves into a sort of chase around a house, being chased by this creeper, until eventually they defeat it at the end, but then they don't, because you got the little scare for the next horror film, the next one in the trilogy that they've got planned for this, if this one worked out for them. And that's pretty much the story for it. The character of Laurie, the Sidney Craven's character, now she has these sort of flashes throughout the film, these sort of telepathy, not even telepathy, but you know, she has these visions of stuff that's going to be and all this sort of a thing, and that sort of came out of nowhere. It's got no explanation to it whatsoever. The two main stars, they share no chemistry at all on screen. On screen, the chemistry is abysmal between them. yeah, and you know, some of the lines in this film are questionable and all this sort of a thing. So the pacing, I'll be honest, I fell asleep. I fell asleep during this film. I felt myself getting tired watching it. My eyes were shutting, so I probably missed a few minutes towards about, I don't know, about 20 minutes in. So I paused it. I had a doze. I woke up. I rewatched, carried on watching it, but my attention was drawn away from it. It couldn't keep my attention focused on it. It wasn't good at all. The pacing is well off. Some of the editing is pretty poor within the context of the film, and yeah, and the makeup of the creeper itself. I mean, that's something that, you know, I want to discuss from the previous films anyway. But you know, there's no real movement. He's got these things that come out, yeah, like the old Jurassic Park thing. You've got these things come out, but you don't see the movement in them. It's like they're not there, then we cut back to him and they're out. You know, they haven't even got the budget to make them come out, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, okay, Jeepers Creepers. Okay, I've seen the first Jeepers Creepers film when it came out in 2001. Now, this was around the time of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I always remember thinking that the creature in Jeepers Creepers reminded me of something from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That this creature is not scary whatsoever. It's just heavily made up, a man in a costume. You can tell that, and it wouldn't be out of place in an episode of Buffy. It looked like a reject from a Buffy episode, a design that they didn't use or something like that. So there is that. And in this, it does look somewhat cheaper than what it did in that first film 22 years ago. Now, that being said, from a story element, now the first Jeepers Creepers film, I was sort of fine with the setup. I was fine with the fact that, you know, you got the scarecrow stuff, you got the truck, you got the geezer, you got this dirty little cabin house thing and stuff going on. And it wasn't until the reveal of the creature that I'm just like, okay, now I've switched off from this. Completely switched off. But I thought I'd give this one a go. Now, Jeepers Creepers 2, I probably have seen. I can't be certain. Jeepers Creepers 3, certainly not. Certainly not seen it. No interest. But I thought I'd give this one a go, like I said, because it's sort of like reboot territory, sequel come reboot. But abysmal it is. The other thing, where does this creeper, why has he got a truck? Where did he get his driving licence from? Where did he learn to drive? This thing comes about every 23 years, apparently. That's its feeding cycle. And it's there for 23 days. So you're telling me that for at one point when he came out for his 23 days, he's thinking, hold on a minute, I'm going to go and get my driving licence. Yeah, let's go get my driving licence. You know, I'll do a quick, you know, one of them in-depth tests where I can get it quick. Now you got the creeper driving around. Do you know what I mean? Just stupid. Not only that, this truck that he's got the truck in this one. And if this does act as a sequel to that first Justin Long one, and he's got the same truck, what does he put it into storage? Okay, this film does introduce an element of individuals that sort of, you know, this group of individuals that sort of, you know, they worship the creeper and they sort of give it sacrifices. So you could come out with some sort of nonsense like, oh, they go and put his truck in storage. They keep it up and running while he's asleep for 23 damn years. This is my problem with horror overall, is that horror for me, first Jeepers Creepers is a fine example, but it has a great setup, it has a great premise to it, around it, and then it drops the ball when it comes to what the creature is and the explanation of the creature. This is the stuff that I struggle to get behind within horror. And yeah, so this film here, I'm telling you, tomorrow morning I will wake up and this film will be stricken from my mind. You know, I'll have some memory of it, and then in 2 weeks' time, you ask me a question about this film, and I won't be able to answer anything about it. I won't remember hardly anything from it. That's how bad I find films like this, and this film. Yeah, it's bad. It's not good at all. Avoid at your own discretion. This is AJ. See you on the next one. Take care all and goodbye.